Korea is in the spotlight after its president declared martial law in the midst of deep political strife, only to lift it after intense pushback. The declaration was quickly denounced by both sides, including the leader of the president's party. The president then lifted the decree after the National Assembly voted to end it. The martial law declaration banned all political activities and allowed the president to take command of the news media. This is the first time martial law has been declared.
Ambassador Everard, without trying to draw too pronounced a line to sort of instability around the world, I mean, this is just the latest example, isn't it? You've got wars and conflict on many continents. We've got instability in South Korea, which I guess, as you described, as sort of seen as a bastion of liberal democracy. We've got a new government in Japan as well that's not quite bedded in yet. I mean, what's your sense of where we're finding ourselves at the moment?
Like everybody else, shock and horror. This isn't some kind of unstable near dictatorship. This is South Korea, a stable, well-established democracy, and the idea that you could have martial law in South Korea declared on the flimsiest of grounds, I think has horrified everybody watching the Korean Peninsula.
President Yoon first said the measure was necessary, accusing the liberal opposition of controlling parliament and sympathizing with North Korea. A White House national security spokesperson says the U.S. was not notified before the announcement was made.
Hundreds of protesters descended on Parliament as police blockaded the entrance following that initial declaration.
Inside, MPs appeared to clash with troops attempting to enter before the opposition called enough of them together to force the president to back down. It has been a very fast developing situation.
As you can see behind me, the sun is now rising and it's 6 o'clock local time in South Korea, and it's amazing to think there's some people waking up now and reading the news and thinking, what on earth happened last night? Because it was only around 11 o'clock, just before midnight, that President Yoon Suk-yeol announced that he was going to impose martial law, which is essentially a form of military-style government used for extreme circumstances when the civilian government cannot function. It means there's a lot of sweeping restrictions put on people, their right to gather, sweeping restrictions on politicians and the media. But what was the reason? Well, he cited it was regarding threats from North Korea. Now, relations between North and South Korea are pretty hostile, but there's been nothing in the past few days that would seem as an obvious justification for this decision.
Yoon Suk-yeol declared martial law in an unannounced late-night address to the country.
But clearly, a stable democracy declaring martial law like this, on top of everything else that's going on in the world, on top of all the other threats to democracy, is really bad news, as one of your earlier contributors was saying.
Yoon is accusing his political opponents of sympathizing with North Korea, saying they've paralyzed the government with anti-state activities. But the National Assembly firing back, voting to demand the president lift the martial law declaration.
First of all, your initial reaction to this, because it seems to have taken almost everyone by surprise.
I think that's an understatement. I am genuinely surprised. I am extremely shocked. But at the same time, I'm just asking myself, are we really in the 21st century?
Dramatic scenes in Seoul after South Korea's president abruptly declared martial law. This is the scene live in Seoul, where hundreds of protesters have gathered outside the nation's parliament.
Opposition politicians remain holed up inside after voting to block the move. Troops have now withdrawn from the building, but the military says it will continue enforcing martial law until the president complies.
So what happened overnight, this appears to be an attempt to catch the opposition off guard, and certainly the public has been caught off guard. Police and military did surround the assembly, the parliament there, but the opposition was able to quickly manoeuvre, get inside the building and pass a vote calling for martial law to end, and that did pass. Now, in theory, that should be the end of it, but as you mentioned earlier, the military says they're not backing down yet until they get that order from the president. So it's still very uncertain at the moment what's going to happen next.
Joo-hee, not sure if she can confirm exactly what she is hearing or seeing. President Yoon is still doubling down and partially blaming North Korea for all of this unrest. But is there any evidence for that? And could this just increased tensions on all fronts?
Well, I think that has been the concern, a fear of escalation among South Koreans and in the region, which is watching this very, very closely. And of course, we know that the United States, the State Department, is watching this closely too. What we do know is that, the North Koreans, for their part, don't actually necessarily have the capabilities to infiltrate, to use this level of intelligence to figure out what's going on. They will probably spin this in a propaganda way.
Well, it's been a truly bizarre and, dare I say, shocking evening in South Korea. It was around 11 o'clock local time when the President Yoon Suk-yeol announced via television he was imposing martial law on this thriving democracy. Now, martial law is essentially a military-style governance, which is meant to come into play when the civilian government cannot rule. There are all sorts of restrictions that are therefore imposed on civilians, on the media. There are extra powers for police, and all medical personnel are meant to report to hospitals and the like within 24 hours. Truly sweeping changes here that left many people in South Korea alarmed, scared, shocked, and, dare I say, even angry at the President Yoon Suk-yeol.
Is there concern about any political takeovers or coups? What's going on?
There has to be. I mean, politically, I think that's the biggest trouble that he's going to have at this moment. He's going to have to explain today what he heard, what he knew, what he understood, and why he took this dramatic action, because people are going to want to know. I mean, there's already sort of rumblings that he needs to step down. This is only going to accelerate that. And so unless there's some peaceful transition there, we may see mass protests and it may escalate.
Yoon took this action, he says, to protect South Korea from anti-state forces, accusing the main opposition party of sympathizing with North Korea.
We are watching the recent developments in the ROK with grave concern.
The opposing party in South Korea has a majority in parliament, with Yoon signing a motion by that party to impeach top prosecutors and reject a government budget proposal, calling the move a clear anti-state behavior aimed at inciting a rebellion.
How we invest in Africa.
President Joe Biden is abroad in Africa Tuesday. A White House spokesperson shared that he has been briefed on the situation.
Okay, so why would the president do something like this?
So officially in his statement, he says there has been unreasonable obstruction to his policies from the opposition, which currently controls the National Assembly. And he says that the country is currently under great threat from communist forces and that he needs to restore order, and that requires extreme measures like this one. In reality, the president, Yoon Suk-yeol, has seen his approval rating plummeting in the last several weeks and months. And yes, the public knows that he has a background as a prosecutor, and he's always used a very strong anti-communist rhetoric. But for him to go this far is just simply astounding.
Yeah, it seems to have taken almost everyone by complete surprise.